Assassin's Creed Origins shook the series more than anyone could have predicted. It took players to a new time period, with a new combat system and some truly gorgeous next-generation graphics. The 2-year wait had done wonders and fans loved it. But where do you go from there? You use the same winning formula, but take it back a few hundred years further and add in a smattering of the bits of the series that players loved the most. No one really liked the co-op stuff, so we can forget about that. What about the whole make a bunch of assassin mates thing? No, we'll leave that in 2011. Oh no, I've got it. The boat from Assassin's Creed 4. So that's what they did. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is set in the oldest time period in the entire series, at the peak of the Peloponnesian War in ancient Greece. It features some of history's biggest philosophical names, an improved combat system, a distinct lack of hidden blade, and most notably a jaw-dropping Greek bireme for you to explore the Mediterranean in. But did it all work in the long run? Was this building on Origins formula worth it, or does it become a derivative copy of a superior game? Join me today on Playing by Series as I venture to the period of history that I have longed to experience since forever, and find out if Assassin's Creed Odyssey is all that it was cracked up to be. I think it's important for me to note that this was the first game that I played on my Xbox One X in 4K, so my first impressions of the graphics were perhaps elevated. Since playing Origins again on the same system in the same resolution, I've noticed the graphics are closer in quality than I had first considered, reusing a lot of the same textures and lighting. This is not, however, a bad thing. Origins was a fantastic looking game and Odyssey is no different. It's particularly impressive how long the draw distances are, as you stare over the open ocean towards islands in the distance, travel through plunging valleys and sail the warm seas under the Mediterranean sun. It's also a more varied game than what came before, with more lush forests and even snowy plains instead of the desert-dominated Origins. It is also a more polished visual experience. You can tell that with some more time to perfect the graphics engine, they've made it more stable. They've also added in some nice little touches, trees move in the breeze and flags gently rustle. It's an organic game and it never stands still. Character models remain untouched, with excellent facial animations for the main cast, while the NPCs all feel a little lifeless. In fact, I'm fairly sure I've seen some of these character models before. Now, usually I'd be irritated by these problems, but with the world as big as it is, I'm neither surprised nor disappointed with the reuse of some assets here or there. In order to create something of this scale, some compromises will have had to have been made. And I'm honestly impressed that the compromises are as small as they are, because this game world is just massive. And I don't mean massive like Origins, this game world steps it up a notch. It almost covers the entirety of ancient Greece, including the lands of the Athenians and the Spartans. And it's not just land either. From one end of the Mediterranean to the other, you can explore the various islands dotted around the sea, thanks to the return of one of Assassin's Creed's greatest moments, a boat and ocean-bound combat. And let me tell you, it's so good to see one of the series' best points back. You're very quickly given a bireme for you to captain over the game's vast seas, complete with a contingent of archers that replaced 4's pirate cannons. You can attack and loot any ship that you spot sailing across the seas, which gives you the bits and bobs that you'll need to make your ship a formidable fighting force through the upgrade screen. Once you've suitably upgraded the Adrestia, you'll find that combat works much like the ship combat of yore, but slightly simplified. There is no mortar or anything like that, but you can get your archers to set their arrows alight, and watching a volley of fiery death descend upon your unfortunate target is maniacal giggle-worthy. But the boat also highlights one of the primary issues with the game. It is far too big. Getting around this map often feels like a chore, particularly when travelling by ship. Getting around in your boat takes time, and unlike when you're riding your horses, there's no follow path option to ease the tedium. In a way, I wish even just the ocean segments had been slightly shrunk down, if not only to condense the travel times when you're trying to get to a new place. You just find yourself travelling for extended periods through very empty stretches of water, and while you can always find an innocent ship to bother, there's only so many poor saps you can sink before you get a little bored. The issue also extends into the sheer amount of things to do. There is an incredible range of activities on offer, but there are just so many of them. Just like the map clutter in the game before, it is extremely daunting to see a map filled with so many unresolved quest markers. But then again, the range of things to do is just fantastic. I particularly love the side stories. Sometimes they are a brief moment in time telling a short story in a single quest. Sometimes what you think to be a small quest turns out to be a mini epic, following a longer story over a few quests. And they've all got different objectives, characters and locations, and all provide you with new equipment. Hunting is also back, allowing you to use the skins and materials you can gather in the world to improve your equipment, letting you hold more arrows and improve your ship. Everything in the game at least holds a point. While there is an immense amount to do, everything stands to benefit you in some way, whether through currency, new weapons, or useful materials. And it all adds together to make Assassin's Creed Odyssey feel more like an RPG than ever. Although at this point, Assassin's Creed essentially has become an RPG. You gain experience points, level up, and use your points to gain useful abilities to aid you in exploration or combat. It's become a very refined system, but one with far more options than last time. The ability tree is much larger than previous, with a great number of different options to choose from. All are useful and most can be further upgraded from their base states. This all points to the direction that Assassin's Creed is headed from this entry, and it's moving further and further away from the traditional idea of Assassin's Creed. Let's for a moment deconstruct the formula of Assassin's Creed. There are two stories set in the past and in the present, and the two of them are interlinked through the Animus. The stories follow the war between the shadowy assassins and the order-obsessed Templars. The costumes are all variations on the same robes, and the hidden blade is a series staple, sometimes used in combat, sometimes used in assassinations, and always sharp. This, at its core, is what Assassin's Creed represents, and either one or all of these elements is at least somewhere within each series entry. Assassin's Creed has almost none of these elements, bar one: the split story, and what a split story. You can choose to follow the ancient Greek adventures of ex-Spartan, part-time mercenary, full-time badass Cassandra, or self-aggrandizing moron Alexios. Through the story, you go about dealing with the cult of Cosmos, and in the process, learn the truth about your main character's mysterious family. And it is good. Now, given the choice, I chose Cassandra, if not only because I always do, and I, for one, was getting a little tired with male mains. Cassandra is excellent. She's got an incredible dry wit, an attitude to match, and an excellent arc. I loved discovering her past with her, and working with her to destroy the presence of the cult of Cosmos. It helps that her voice acting is very good. It really sells the character in a meaningful way. And the story we play through as Cassandra is also excellent. It's a beautifully written affair with some incredible main characters, wonderful quest lines, and some hard-hitting emotional climaxes. It's not too hard to follow, and the twists, while predictable, are revelatory enough to help the story feel weighty. The present-day story is also a surprise hit. Layla makes a triumphant return, and this time she has some exploring of her own to do. There has been significant investment put in here, and it really shows. The two stories are beautifully interwoven, and it makes the story that bit more finished. There are only a couple of issues here. The first is namely the villains themselves. You see, there aren't really any main villains until the end of the story, and the number of side villains is just too large to focus on any one of them in any great detail. A couple have some fantastic arcs, seeing you learn about why they do what they do and working out ways to deal with them, while others are just different characters hanging out in particular areas, with nary but a couple of scrolls that you find lying around to tell you about them. Which brings me on to the main issue with the story. It's just so long. There are far too many cultists to hunt down, and the main storyline itself lasts for an impressive number of hours, at least 40. It all just brings me back to how this game is just a bit too much, and while I don't necessarily find it too much of a problem, I know that there are a great number of people that will. So the story then for the most part is very good, revealing its secrets over its course in a natural and often very clever manner. But it's not very Assassin's Creed. Sure, there are secret shadowy orders warring in the background, but the assassins don't exist yet and the Proto-Templars are more scary religious cult than world-dominating super-organisation. But I don't really think that matters in the long run. Objectively, the story here is very good, and it's a joy to watch unfold. The combat is also most definitely not a problem either. It's been streamlined from its previous entry with a few less options, but it has also been perfected. Cassandra dances around the battlefield with reckless abandon, cutting foes back with incredibly fast strikes. You can't equip shields here, but you can use heavy axes, light swords, and even long spears. It's a great experience and one that builds on what was already there. The assassinations have also been worked on to a degree that gives you more flexibility than ever. You have to upgrade your assassin's blade in order to take out stronger enemies with one hit, but other than that you are free to scout out strongholds for your quarry with your eagle and then work your merry way to the target as you see fit. Now I'd like to say you can do this anywhere on the map, but that's just not true. Back are the unfortunate arbitrary level blocks on the map, and they're just as torturously annoying as before. In fact, they sometimes can be even more annoying here. Often an objective for a main quest will be on an area on the other side of a spot that you aren't even remotely leveled enough to make a difference in, leaving you to hope that you don't encounter a high-level enemy patrol on your nail-biting trip. But that's not all the map holds in its various areas. Each part of the map can be fought for control in the game's war setting. You, as a mercenary, can fight for one of the two main factions, the Athenians or the Spartans, and help the two in various parts of the map. It's a strangely in-depth edition as well. You essentially act as spy, commander, and political leader for both sides. You go through the various areas, disrupting supply lines and killing off leaders to destabilise the area. Then you command an army of whichever side you choose in order to capture that part of the map for a particular faction. Now you choose the next area and do the same thing again. It's a fun addition, but it also just boils down to more busy work. It doesn't really affect anything other than the colour of the soldiers' uniforms, and it doesn't affect your standing with each faction. You're just a mercenary who helps them out occasionally. But in the long run, it just highlights that there is just too much here, especially when you realise that this war is seemingly never ending. So what do you do when you're a games developer with a good thing that people like? Well, if you're Ubisoft, then you make the same thing again with different characters and a new boat. I joke of course, but playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey again straight after playing Origins does make me realise just how similar the games are when compared side to side. But honestly, I'm not sure that this is such a bad thing. Origins was an excellent game, and in a way Odyssey just builds on the winning formula, echoing its brilliant story, incredible visuals and solid combat, while also bringing its own unique bits and bobs like the welcome addition of the Greek bireme. This does mean that it shares some of the previous game's foibles, however. It is still just far too big. There's a massive amount of stuff to do, and it can feel a little daunting when you see a map filled with unsolved quest markers. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is still a fantastic game, arguably the most impressive the series has ever had. While its size could be considered a weak point, the positives just hammer home this slow perfection of the previous game. And at this point it feels so far removed from the Assassin's Creed series as a whole that even detractors of the series would likely find something to enjoy here. Thanks again for watching another episode of Playing by Series, and we've almost finished. I've been Matt and you're in the den. Now, I think it's necessary to make an amendment to my release schedule. Since launch, we've been able to release 2 videos every week, and the quality has been dropping. As such, the new release will be every Friday, and there will be only 1 new video every week. This should keep quality up and my stress levels down. Anyway, if you liked this video, please give us a like, and if you'd like to see more, get subscribed. In the meantime, stay safe.